Hi, I'm Kyle McClinigan with the Eagle, here with our guest Paul Dyson to discuss his campaign for Texas House District 14. Thanks for being with us, Paul.
Kyle, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so just kind of started off, this is a simple question, but also a really important one. Why did you decide to run for House District 14?
Well, thank you for asking that, Kyle. Kind of goes way back to my beginnings here in Bryan-College Station. I've called Bryan-College Station home for over 30 years now. I grew up here, and I had an opportunity back when I was transitioning, I guess, junior to senior year, so my junior summer in high school, to go to a program called Boys State in Austin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I actually went there.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know.
Yeah.
And so the local American Legion Post, their old Grand Post, sponsored me. I was honored to be one of the ones chosen to go from this area. And that was kind of my introduction into politics. And, you know, it's a fun program, as you know. You get to learn about city, county, state government, something that I think that until you get yourself immersed in it, you don't truly understand all of it. And so that was kind of the beginning of my intro into politics and the idea of this political process and running. And I really enjoyed it. Well, when my family and I moved back in 2014, my wife Terry and I, this is where we chose to call home. We came back in 2014. My dad and brother were running Dyson Energy Group, which is a E&P company here. And we came back. They were really busy, asked if I was interested in moving back home and kind of joining up with their business. And so Terry and I talked about it, and we decided this was the place that we wanted to raise our children. At the time, we were living in Houston, and we knew that this offered a much better place to raise our children. So kind of going back to your question, I just wanted to put a little background in it. That's the real reason why I'm running. I want this place, HD 14, Bryan-College Station, Brazos County, I want this area to be that strong conservative area that I grew up in. It's the area that provided me the success that I've had in my life. I want that same for all the children that are here, and especially my children, why we're raising them here in Bryan-College Station.
Yeah, definitely. And so getting back to the questions, what do you think are some of the biggest issues facing Texans in District 14, and how do you hope to address them if selected as a representative?
Well, I think the number one issue right now that I'm hearing about, and I've knocked on a lot of doors, and this campaign started back in September for us, and I've been talking to a whole lot of different groups, individuals. Number one thing I'm hearing about is the southern border, and it's about what can we do to solve the crisis that's happening down on the southern border. And still to this day, I think that's the number one issue that we're seeing. And one of the things, did you want me to go ahead and jump into?
Yeah, you can go ahead and jump into it.
I was going to say, one of the things that I think I've heard a lot about is a lot of people are really happy with what Governor Abbott's doing and how he is trying to make sure that Texas border, at least, is secure. And what we've seen lately is there's at least a majority of the states out there that are supporting what he is doing also. So I think it's incumbent on us as legislatures to help Governor Abbott and support his efforts in that. Hopefully the administration is starting to get the signal and that they will come back and do their job, which really it is their job to protect the southern border, but they haven't been doing it.
Okay, yeah. And if elected to office, what are some things you think need to be passed or done in order to secure the border?
So I think the number one thing would be funding. Make sure that Governor Abbott, again, if the federal government, the administration is not doing their job, that Governor Abbott has the funding that's necessary to secure the border. It's going to take a lot of law enforcement. We've seen it's taking infrastructure down there that really the federal government should be paying for. But unfortunately, for Texas to make sure that it has a southern border that's secure, we have to step in and do their job.
Okay, yeah. And another big issue, a headline issue, has been the school choice, school voucher program debate. That was the last legislative session. And the former District 14 Representative John Rainey, who's retiring, he actually authored an amendment at the end of the last special session that ended Abbott's most recent attempt to pass a school voucher-like program. So with all that being said, what is your stance on school voucher programs or school choice programs like that? And if elected, would you be in favor of such programs?
Well, I think if we go back to the 2022 primary vote, the Republican Party during their primary puts propositions on there, and it gives us some insight to what the primary voters are thinking. And Proposition 9 there showed that 83% supported a school choice program with money following the child. So with that being said, we have to take that and take a look. That doesn't mean that people in HD 14 don't also want strong schools. And the two issues aren't strong public schools. And the two issues aren't mutually exclusive, right? We can do both, and I believe that Representative Buckley, when he presented his HB1, that's what he was attempting to do. He'd made a good compromise. There's probably still room on both sides to work on that compromise, but that's where I end up seeing it going, and I would have supported that compromise.
Okay, yeah. And I also wanted to ask, with school voucher programs, of course, Texas doesn't have one yet, and but in other states, it sometimes has taxpayer money going to religious schools. So are you at all worried about that concern, or do you think safeguards should be in check for that, or what's your stance on that?
Well, I think the important part is when the money is following the student, it's not necessarily looking at the end result, whether it's a religious school, an independent school, or whether it's going to help support people who parents that choose the option of homeschooling. Is that we're going to make a commitment that that funding is going to follow that student.
Okay, yeah. And you mentioned public schools and how important they are. Currently, the Bryan and College Station school districts are running at a deficit. And so how important is school funding, especially teacher pay, and how would you hope to kind of increase that or increase support for public schools?
So I think keeping our public schools strong is essential. They are what makes our community strong. They are what brings value to our properties. People want to move to places that have strong school districts, and we are blessed in HD 14 to have two very strong school districts. I've been working with both superintendents, talking with them a lot about what they would like to see, and I think there's a lot of room to work with, including lessening regulation and bringing more control to the local level, which would be the school boards.
Okay, yeah. And in your opinion, what's kind of the defining issue or question of your campaign?
Defining issue?
Yeah.
That is a great question. I don't think I've ever had that question before. I would tell you the defining issue is for us to continue the prosperity and the success that HD 14 has enjoyed. And that is the defining issue. That is what we need as a representative. Who's going to provide that stability that we've seen over the last few decades? We've had a lot of great public servants that have come through and run for us, and I think it's important and incumbent on the next representative to provide that stability.
Okay, yeah. And that was really all the major questions I had, but I did want to give you the opportunity to go over any campaign points or anything we might not have mentioned that you think makes you stand out as a candidate in this race.
Well, again, I think this is the place where I was raised. It means a whole lot to me. I've been involved in the community prior to leaving when I went to, I left in 2003 to go to law school. And then ever since I've been back in 2014, my wife and I have been extremely involved in the community. It's a place that we call home. This is where we are for the long haul. And it's one thing that I want to make sure that this is the home that I knew growing up, and that it's going to be that strong conservative values.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to come visit us and speak with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it, Kyle. Thank you.